Hey everybody, and welcome to this video that I'm making to go over Milestone 3 with you. You've completed the first two. You have an idea what you need to do for these, so this shouldn't feel any different. And I'll go over the specifics of it here. Of course, it's all in the document. That includes the explanation and the template for Milestone 3. Now remember, each milestone you do is something you want to save. Make sure you make the edits based on the feedback you get from me. Make the edits and then save it, because it's going to be used in your final project submission. Saves a whole lot of time at the end. Okay? So let's talk about this. So our next step now is to define the pricing and selling channel strategies. They're not necessarily related, just because this class we're trying to get through it, the term that we have. So that's why they're combined together. They aren't really necessarily all that closely related, or any more closely related than any out of the other 4 P's. So the first thing you need to do here is do research. Now by now you should know that. But this should be pretty easy. So if you have a pretty solid definition of who your target market is, again using that generalized definition that you created back in Milestone 1, do some research. Find out where or how does your target value your product. And this goes back directly to positionings and how you see them seeing your product, okay? And then where do they shop for your product? And that is a simple matter of meeting them where they are. That you need to do that. No point in trying to get them to buy from a different channel than they're willing to buy from. You just need to meet them where they are, basically, is what it comes down to. So your pricing strategy, where to start? Well, your target's needs and wants, of course. So when you go back and think about all the needs and wants that you considered to put together the product itself, you're going to find out how they value the product. The value that they put on the product directly relates to the price that you can charge for it, right? Or they're willing to pay, which is the other more important way of putting it. So consider your position statement. Where did you put the product? Are you considering it a high value product, or are you considering it an economy product? There's all kinds of different ways you could have looked at that. Okay, so your positioning statement matters a lot. You want to choose a primary strategy, the one that you're going to basically follow at least through the introductory phases of let's start over, through the first few phases of the product life cycle curve, which you learned a little bit about. So your basic strategy is to choose a primary strategy, which would, and I'm going to really limit these, okay, so I'm going to explain them in a minute, but I know there's a lot more that goes into this than what I'm going to ask you to do, but it doesn't matter. You're going to be able to summarize these in the form of a strategy for your product. So we're going to look at a low price strategy, a premium strategy, and a market sensitive strategy. But you also have to consider, what's your introductory strategy? This is a new product that's coming out, so you need to think about what price am I going to introduce it at? And you have an opportunity to do some things to help you introduce the products. So we're going to talk about all these things in detail right now. So your primary strategy is you need to choose, and the reason I'm really limiting the choices here, because you could consider a lot of things, but you could do that for months. So, and seeing as you want to do this in the next week or so, we're gonna limit our choices here. So, you're gonna choose a primary strategy, which you could use a low price strategy, and that relates to or supports the idea of does your target value the least expensive option, and that's really what they're going to go for. We all can envision how most of us look at certain products. We're always going for the low price strategy. And it's rarely always one way or another, but having said that, that's, you need to have a primary strategy here. So the low cost strategy, obviously we have to have some really huge, advantages in manufacturing our product to be able to actually produce it at a low price, so we could actually support that kind of a strategy ongoing. A premium strategy takes into account that your target is looking for quality, and are they willing to pay for it? So if they are in that mode, then you're in pretty good shape. So I would to charge a premium price for the product. We've probably all bought premium priced products before, and we would feel dissonant. Like we'd feel like there's something wrong if somebody was taking a really expensive product or a really high quality product and really discounting it heavily so that it was really cheap. You'd start to wonder if you're really getting the quality that you think you're paying for. It should be a good thing, right? But it's not necessarily. That's not how we look at it. It introduces some dissonance or some ability, some way for us to say as a consumer that it doesn't feel right, and we want to be able to know that we're paying a higher price for the higher quality. I use as an example cars. Volkswagen had a few years ago came out with something called the Phaeton. I think that's how you pronounce it, Phaeton, which was basically an Audi A8 and a Volkswagen badge. Well, we picture Volkswagen as being a really low-priced car, and we're not used to seeing Volkswagen under that brand to sell a higher quality luxury type of car. And it failed miserably. And it's probably because it just didn't really fit the view of the target market that said they wanted quality and they were willing to pay for it. And then there's the last approach is the least well-defined, but it's a market-sensitive approach. And that really comes down to, does your target's view of the value of your product depend on other factors that influence the price they're willing to pay? So I'm going to give, as an example, we've been living in inflationary times. People are starting to cut out premium brands because they're saying it's like that. You know what? I'm not willing to pay the extra amount. I'm going to go for the less expensive one. So that shows a market sensitivity, and your target market is largely driven by that. So at the right price at the right time, you can sell it. Otherwise, you probably have a hard time selling your product. Your introductory pricing strategy is one you would do in the very short term when you introduce your product. And I've got two options plus no option at all, which would be, the none option. You can do that too. And not every product goes through this, but I will only say this about an introductory pricing strategy. You get to do it one time. That's it. You don't get to do it again. So you can only introduce your product once. So the idea of a penetration strategy is to lower your price below the market to have an impact on the marketplace quickly, and you gain market share quickly. You might say, it's like, well, why would I want to do that? It's going to kill my profits. And you're probably right. It will in the short term. But you're doing it to gain some market share advantages, gain some market share quickly by introducing at a very low price. Now, usually that goes along with something along the lines of describing it to the consumer as special introductory offer. That's as much for the consumer to let them know that the price isn't always going to be this low, and to signal honestly to the marketplace and say, we're not coming in here. This is not our game ongoing. This is our way of jumping into the marketplace. So don't overreact and lower your prices like crazy just because I'm doing this. Okay. So those are the reasons you want to do that. So that's the penetration strategy, is to buy market share quickly. Okay. There's a skimming strategy, which is the opposite, which is basically you're going to charge a higher price because you're trying to recoup all the costs that you had to introduce this new product. Pharmaceutical companies do this as much as they possibly can. Okay, they come out with a price that's higher until they get more competition, and then they have to lower the price. And then there's the concept of like, look, I'm just going to introduce the product at my ongoing strategy, and that's the best option that I have available to me. So, under any circumstance, you're going to explain your pricing strategy based on what you think the marketplace wants, and you're going to outline the pros and the cons of any choices that you make. And there are pros and cons to every choice you make here. Okay, so none of them are perfect. All right, so let's move on. An unrelated topic. This is we're on to the last of the 4 P, or the third of the 4 Ps, and that's selling channel strategy. And that is, where are you going to offer your product? That's what you hope to do. That's what your plan is. Okay, so, but that comes down quickly to, where does your target market shop for the products that you sell? There are lots of, with a consumer product like what we're talking about for this project, you're going to have to get a pretty broad base of distribution. All right, even if it's more specialized or targeted. Okay. It's still going to have to be pretty broad based, because you're going to have to get your product out as quickly as you can. So You need to ask questions like, where does your target market shop for this type of product? Again, it has to do with positioning here. Okay, so if you're at a premium level, where are they going to buy premium food products? That's a really important consideration to take into account. So you're going to have a primary strategy, which is your first choice, which is the one where you think is most likely you're going to reach your target market most quickly. And then you're going to think about what your secondary channels would be. And there's lots of them. So let's just say you're going to sell through a retail distribution of your product. You might also want to find options to sell online and other types of things, because you're going to find out that's where your target market is willing to shop on an increasing level. So those are all the considerations you take. This is all about making the right, not making the correct choice, but making the most well-reasoned choice. I want you to be able to explain to me in the course of this document why your choices are the best ones you can make. So an overall template of the assignment is you want to have a brief description of your persona. It's like, gee, that sounds familiar. Yeah, you're probably going to do it each time. You won't do this in the final project where you keep repeating it, but you're going to do it because it kind of sets up how you're making the decisions that you are. Okay. Your position statement reiterated to support your pricing strategy. That's about a paragraph. You did your position statement in Milestone 2. You define how your target market sees the value of your product. That's important to understand from a research standpoint. Where does that fit? And that's going to really lead you up to what is your overall pricing strategy. You're going to make one of those choices. You're going to describe the pros and cons of the choices that you make. Okay? Not for each one, but for the one that you choose. And define your introductory pricing strategy. That's a penetration strategy, a skimming strategy. You don't have one at all. There's pros and cons to each of those, so make sure you outline those as well as you can. And then your selling strategy is actually relatively simple. You want to outline your primary selling channel that you're going to go through, and then maybe list at the most like 2 or 3 secondary channels that you would consider. Clearly, not all the channels you would sell through in their entirety, but just the ones you think are primary and the ones that you think are most important. So that's Milestone 3. Good luck with it. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out and ask. I'm here to help you gain some clarity. So don't hesitate to do that. And the best of luck with it.